change a thing now, there was never trust. Don't you say a word, cause I've heard it all. You were just pain when you felt it all. Oh. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Top Drive Show. We're here today to be discussing a bunch of Top Drives related subjects with some of the development team here at Hutch. Hi Will. This is episode 1. We are looking for your feedback. If there's anything that's really good about this, or if there's anything that you think could be improved, please tell us down in the comments, and feel free to leave more questions for next time. We're going to try and make this more of a regular thing, so please let us know what we can do. I'm Josie. I am an analyst for Hutch, but you probably know me a little bit better from sliding around on ice rinks and driving really cheap cars. I'm joined though today by John and Tim. So hi guys.
Hi.
Say a little something about yourselves.
So I'm Jonathan. I am design director here at Hutch, but also one of the sort of early members on Top Drives when it was just a tiny little team as just the kind of spark of an idea that we started off with, this crazy idea of trying to make a collectible car game, something that sort of showed off just the breadth that kind of the car culture and car communities can offer. Yeah, still in the project, very much on the kind of car side, but also helping put together challenges and bits like that.
Yeah, and I'm Tim. I actually run the team that looks at all the numbers behind everything to check how well the game's performing, looking after how we go about acquiring new players to keep more people coming into the game all the time. And for me personally, Top Drives has been kind of a crazy journey because like 2 years ago, didn't really know anything about cars or wasn't that interested. And as Top Drives developed, I got more and more into it. Now I'm one of the, I don't know, there's probably 5 of us, I think, here at Hutch who are super fans and play it every day. And so, yeah, I'm right up there with them. So, yeah, really interested to talk about what we've got.
Well, let's do some of that right now then. There's been a lot of discussion on the forums about challenge mode. So obviously something has gone down there that sort of garnered a lot of interest. I want you to give me the lowdown. Like, tell me about what this is all about.
So I think it was last one, kind of two challenges ago, was Carathalon, which was, I mean, basically we use the challenge mode to try and get people playing with their collections, kind of use the variety that's kind of on offer, and actually, as the name suggests, kind of to challenge people in that way. It's sort of, we play it a lot. It's notoriously difficult within the team to kind of get the balancing absolutely right, just because people have such diverse car collections now, and they've upgraded them in different ways, and it's very difficult to kind of get that balancing absolutely right so it caters for everyone. And then also we thought we'd try something a little bit different with this one, in that I think actually it was inspired by a friend who's very into triathlons, and I just thought, well, what would a car-based triathlon look like? And also I think most of the time our challenges are 5 zones with kind of little kind of ramping up of difficulty during them. But with this one we went with 3 zones, as the name would suggest, and did it kind of drag racing, kind of off-road and circuit racing, just to kind of really push the kind of the boundaries of somebody's car collection, and I think that did probably introduce a little bit more difficulty than we've typically had.
Yeah, I mean, and the boss character coming out is our old friend Antoine Legrand. He's the final guy from the game. You might have remembered finding him really difficult back in the day, and now you look back at Monaco 10 and you can do it easily, partly because of the car that you won from him. But yeah, he's come back with a really tough challenge. And the way we look at the challenge, people ask like, what percentage of people could even do it? You've got to remember that like most of the people starting the challenge, like maybe even half of them, are actually people new to the game. There's so many of those. And not many of them make it to the end, because the end is catered for like end game players with quite updated, complete collections. So what I instead tend to look at when evaluating challenge difficulty is certain number of people get through to the ceramic pack, which is usually zone 4, and then what percentage of those actually manage to get to the end. And for a normal challenge, that's about 50%, which I think is fine. You've either managed to just about get it or you haven't. And some people are on the edge, and if they really try hard, they can, qualify. And then in the past, we've had some harder challenges where only like about 25% of people made it. Sometimes there's an easier challenge, about 75% make it. This is probably one of the hardest ones we've done. There were a couple of hard ones at the beginning. This one, about 10% made it. That's probably about as hard as we'd ever like it to get. It was a very nice prize, and Antoine Legrand is really stretching people, but it's going to get a bit easier.
Yeah, and
after that.
I think the thing is that we do. I mean, obviously, with the data that we get back, it does feed into each new one that we do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of over time we can, I think we learn more about the sort of, the typical kind of progress through these challenges. And it just means, again, yes, some of them will be harder, some will be easier, but hopefully that will be reflected in the prizes on offer.
Yeah.
And the goal is just to try keep offering up, different ways to use your car collection, really.
Yeah, and it was a lot easier at the beginning as well, because we pretty much knew the best cars people would tend to have were either the RQ26 Camaro or the McLaren 12C. So we're like, all right, well, they've definitely got those, and they've probably got some things not quite as good, so we can cater to them. Now, people who've been playing for months after that, they've got all sorts of different extra things, and it's a lot harder to fairly judge, like, what do most people have, how difficult is this going to be. I mean, for me, I've been playing solidly since launch, and this challenge, I couldn't quite do it, but if I upgraded one legendary one more time by sacrificing 3 A cars, I was able to do it. And I figured, I'm going to do it.
Which one did you? What did you upgrade?
So that was which one is it? It's the McLaren that has the incredible handling. You see, I don't know the cars.
Is it blue?
I think it was green. It's good that the McLaren's are different colours.
Kind of 675 LT.
That's it, 675 LT. Yeah, exactly. I had it. Yeah. Never fused it yet, but I knew if I fused it, I could get the handling up to 99. And I did have 3 A cars just sort of lying around.
Because I think I kind of themed it because it was Legrand as your opponent.
Yeah.
And he's gone off and got himself a new McLaren.
Yeah.
Which is the 650S, the blue one.
Right.
And so it definitely forcing people to up their game a little bit in the McLaren face-offs.
Yeah, exactly. And I was okay with that because I've decided to specialise in my UK hand. That's where I've been the luckiest. And that's where whenever I've got upgrades around, I'm like, I should probably build that up. So it kind of worked with what I was trying to do.
Yeah. But I think in summary, it's definitely the hardest challenge we've done so far. And I think we'll kind of future ones will kind of ease off, and every now and again we'll bring back some of the harder ones and go with the good prizes.
Yeah.
Cool, nice. All right. Oh, thank you very much. Let's talk about popular cars. So not just in terms of people who look at cars out in the real world and they're like, oh, I really want that car because it's awesome in real life. In top drives, there are also different strategies you need. There are lots of different stuff that you can do with your cars. Lots of play styles. What kind of cars are we seeing recurring over and over again? Like what is it that the player base is like a whole big aggregate? What do they like?
Yeah, exactly. And we've got hundreds of cars now. How many have we got with the most recent release?
It was 935.
935.
Right. So we're getting very close to the big 1,000 mark.
Yeah, and as a player, you encounter lots of cars, and you're trying to figure out which ones to hang on to. So I actually took a look back at everything since launch. And for each rarity tier, I picked out which are the top 3 cars that players tend to invest the most in, that they're most likely to choose to keep and upgrade. I've taken out the boss cars because they just sort of dominate. People are overwhelmingly likely to upgrade those because when they typically win them, that's the best car they have. I've also taken out prize cars because they're much harder to get, and also the people who win them tend to upgrade them immediately. That's just a given. So excluding those, what's the most popular in each rarity tier? Just for the cars that are currently in that rarity tier, as of the most recent change we've made with the Mazda update. There's a lot of cars to talk about, so I'll just stick to the rares, or D, or blue if you just see colour, and we'll talk about the epics, which are... So, among the rare cars, what we see... Let's have a look here. So, there's one that probably would jump out to everybody, the El Camino, right? the thing about the way we balance cars in Top Drives is we race them against all the other cars on all the challenges pretty much and see how many they beat, and then that determines the RQ. What then becomes the best strategy in the game is picking a specialist car, a car that is disproportionately good at one thing and terrible at other things, and if you play that car on the things it's good at, then it's going to be way better than the RQ suggests. And the El Camino is kind of the definitive example of that. It's absolutely brilliant at going in a very straight line in very clear asphalt dry conditions. Anything else goes wrong. So unsurprisingly, that is right up there. The other specialist that comes up is the 1970 Ford Escort Rally Spec. We made a change a few months ago to allow a few more of the rally cars to have off-road tyres because they were kind of too rare.
They just weren't enough, and it does, it makes a huge difference. I think as everyone knows, it makes a big difference having the right tyres for the right conditions, and so it just felt like I think it's been quite a fun change. It's just getting a few more of those cars into the mix.
Exactly, and sure enough, people recognise that, and when they get a Ford Escort Rally Spec, they invest in it. It's really good in the snow. Especially ice, pretty good. Doesn't have four-wheel drive, but you can go a long way just with those off-road tyres. So for a rare car, that's really great. And from 1970 as well, that's nice to have. Yep. That's what the El Camino is as well. Didn't notice that before. And then the third most upgraded that is still rare is actually the Alfa Romeo Brera S. I think a lot of people noticed this when the Italy update went out, and people were trying to get good Italian cars as quickly as they could, and in particular trying to get the super rares or Cs, but then this car was actually outperforming them.
Yeah, I mean it's a good all-rounder. I've no idea if there's some subconscious thing. I know the Top Gear guys back in the day, kind of Clarkson, Hammond and May, were Clarkson particularly is such a huge Alfa fan. I think they all are.
Right.
That they did a whole piece of basically whenever there's an Alfa on or a new Alfa out, and I remember they did a very distinct piece about when the Brera was announced, how they were just all over it.
Right.
And I don't know whether even things like that kind of stick in some people's heads as like, actually this is a
probably
is
for
a
some
very,
people
very desirable car. And
yeah.
But it's a good all-rounder in terms of performance in the game as well.
Yeah, and it does have the joint highest top speed of any rare as of the latest RQ update. Let players figure out what the other one is.
Comment if you know.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the rares. And over to the epics. So you don't get epics very often. When you do, it's a very exciting moment. But which ones do people really invest in? And in particular, because to upgrade an epic, you've got to put your ultra rares into it, your Bs, which are also not that common. So it's a very serious deal that these players are investing in these cars. And again, we see at the very top a mix of what I think I'd count as all-rounders and specialists as like the best things to invest in. So, perhaps the most obvious, I don't know, is the Lotus 211 Supercharged.
Yep.
Absolutely brilliant specialist for the slaloms, anything that's extremely twisty.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of the things in kind of slaloms and G-force tests that's a little bit kind of sort of behind the scenes is that weight does come into it, and you can have an SUV, like huge big heavy SUV that's got great ultimate grip, but when you're putting it kind of through its paces in a slalom or a G-force, compared to something like the 211, it's the 211's kind of lack of weight is just going to show and give it that slight advantage.
Yeah, and then the next one up is one of the Evos.
Yep.
It's the I don't know how you pronounce that. I've only ever seen it written down. Did you just say Evo X FQ360?
I guess probably everyone you could say, or Evo 10
Evo 10,
FQ360.
yeah, sure.
I think probably everyone will have slightly different ways of saying it. But again, very obviously great all rounder. I think everyone will have, all car fans will know that the Evo series been around for a long time, lots of iterations. And just known as just being a great car, great on different surfaces. So it's probably quite a safe bet to put your
that's right.
Has a reputation.
Put your money into.
Yeah. I drew one of these a few months back. I was really pleased. Used it in a lot of events. And then when one of the other super players here, he got one just recently. I was sort of annoyed, like I had that one.
My advantage has been eroded away.
Yeah, exactly. We're not actually in competition with each other really, but felt good. And finally, and I'm sure experienced players won't be too surprised by this. The top most upgraded Epic, if you have it, is one of the Audis. It's the RS6 Avant, the red one, if you just see colour. I mean,
they're just epic cars. I was at the weekend, just one drove past me. I think it's one of those cars that if one ever drives past you, if there's any sort of hint of being into cars, you know, it's just it's just such a great package. It's, you know, a big practical estate car that just makes the most unbelievable noise, you know, and it's incredible traction, just a great all round. And this one, we it's another thing that we do debate a little bit when we put cars like this in. But this one went in with its with its de-restricted top speed.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of those differences. Whereas, you know, a lot of German cars are restricted to 155.
Yep.
This one was allowed to have its restriction lifted, which obviously gives you the top speed advantage and makes it even more useful.
Yeah. And I mean, it is RQ30, which would normally make it a legendary, but we've made the call, like at the beginning, to just hold back legendary for more prestigious, rarer, harder to get in real life cars.
I mean, like I said, it's an amazing car, but it just felt kind of early on, it felt like there were just certain cars that we needed to do a little bit of adjustment on and just keep that kind of legendary badge, you know, just for the stuff that is just has that bit of drama about it. Maybe it's, in a way, you could say that Audi's almost too good an all-rounder. It's
yeah. I mean, I think that's why we've actually, I'm not saying this, I think we've given it a bit extra RQ just to like go, well, okay, I mean, it's amazing, and because it's an epic, it's easier to upgrade than a legendary.
Yeah.
So we're going to make it cost you a bit more.
Yeah, just to counterbalance that a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, there's other Audis that are up there, you know, like the S8 Plus. They're just below. They didn't quite make the top 3, and they're just not quite as good. I don't have that one. I have some of the other ones. Yeah. There you go. That's it for those.
Now, if you're watching this, then that means that PL 6.0 has already dropped. So, I mean, congratulations. Welcome to the brave new world of top drives. And we're going to talk a little bit about it now. We've got the new patch with lots and lots of new cars. So what have we got in store?
Yeah,
for
so
everyone?
I thought I think it's probably always going to be my favourite bit, where I just get to waffle about cars, which I always enjoy. But yeah, so one new manufacturer in Mazda, who we've been wanting to get in for a while, and then also it is Porsche's 70th anniversary this year. So they are doing a variety of things. I think they had a big presence at Goodwood Festival of Speed just a couple of weeks ago. And so we thought it'd be nice to do a little Porsche update. They always prove popular.
Yeah.
And so we thought we'd put a kind of motorsport angle on it and just get in a few of their more kind of iconic race cars. But I just got to kind of flick through a few Mazda first, a few of the models.
Great.
Kind of what we were thinking. Not too many, because obviously there's quite a few in there. I've pulled out one of my personal favourites is the third generation RX-7. It's just it's just one of those cars. It looks great. They just did. I think when it came out, just such a just really lovely proportioned car. Gained, I think, a lot of popularity in the tuning scene. Featured heavily in Fast and Furious.
Yeah, it was in all the video games, all the movies.
Yes, it's just great looking car. And I think for me, the earlier RX-7s were good cars and did well. I think for me that kind of early 90s period when this came out was when it just felt like the Japanese sports cars suddenly they just hit their stride, and it really felt like they were making everyone else, like the Germans and the Italians, really sort of sit up and kind of actually have to take them very seriously indeed. And I think that's actually the Spirit R that we're looking at the moment. But just a great car, very innovative, just very beautiful. Next, I think different people will know it as kind of the MX-5 or the Unos Roadster,
or the Miata.
Several different names around the world. But yeah, just there's not really too much more to say. I can't remember the exact figure. We must have about definitely over 10 different MX-5 models in the game, ranging from a kind of basic Mark 1, which is is going to be sort of not particularly highly high RQ, but is going to be just good at all the handling events and things like that. But then we go right up to some of the more serious MX-5s, the recent ones that are actually kind of genuinely quick performance cars. But I think that's the thing in terms of like Mazda going into the game and playing with them. Mazda, no matter what sort of segment of cars they're in, they've always put sort of driving has always been kind of basically, you know, a big part of what they do. And so I think you'll probably see kind of handling scores coming out, you know, on average just that little bit higher than some of the competitors.
Yeah,
so.
I checked through actually of all the ultra rares, the Mazdas, they're not at the high end of the RQ band in ultra rare, but they're pretty much all in the top 10% by handling.
Yeah.
So they're real contenders.
Yeah, and it's either if they're doing a saloon or an SUV, they're still kind of, they're just known for, you know, they just put handling, you know, very high up their priorities, and we want that reflected in the game. One of the team favorites here is the little AutoZam AZ1. Actually, it's funny, as soon as this went into the game internally for testing, it's just got all these messages from people just saying how glad they were that it was in. I mean, it's, you know, over here in the UK, it's probably, it is a slightly obscure little car. There was a little run of those kind of tiny Japanese cars back in the day, but it's just got so much presence for something that's that tiny. So again, a good maybe going up against the Honda Beat. There could be some epic races with those two.
Coming out like uncommon, is it? I can't remember, but it's one of those ones where like I'd keep that and upgrade it.
Yes.
Because it looks good. I want one of those.
And it's we all love cars that have like faces on them. And
right.
I think that's one of the best.
Good face.
And then finally from Mazda, but by no means least, is the 787B. Just like an epic race car. I think it's sort of widely regarded as sort of probably the most iconic racing car to come out of Japan. Again, using the rotary engine to kind of unbelievable effect. Sort of, I think 900 brake horsepower around that in race spec. Yeah. And I've never heard one personally, but I've heard from people that the noise when it's used in anger is just like nothing else out there. So just a great car. I think it'll be running on slicks, so obviously absolutely no use in the wet or on your motocross tracks or anything like that. But find a nice dry challenge, and it's that is going to be very, very hard to beat. So and then briefly onto Porsche. Again, just we sort of, whenever we look at this, we looked at kind of, you know, Porsche Motorsport was the theme. Went right back to the kind of early days, so in the 50s, and the 550 Spider, which again, it's one of those cars that even if you're not that into cars, obviously it was made famous by the James Dean connection, but was a great race car, just so kind of highly regarded now. I think you're looking at probably at least kind of $3 million worth, if not more, for something like that. So
wasn't this model used in Formula One briefly?
Kind of back in the very, very early days. I think it was sort of designed for that.
So technically, we've added a Formula One car.
Yes, this could be the first. We would love to add more at some point. I think it would be quite fun to get even some of the more historical ones. I think would be quite fun to get in. But so the 550, just a beautiful car. We've added the right up to date. That they're already, you know, some of the older generation GT cars already exist, but we've gone up to date with the very latest GT3 RS and GT2 RS. Again, I think probably GT3 RS would be. I think if you quizzed your average or all your motoring journalists, I think they would probably have it at the top of the list as the ultimate all-round driver's car. Right. And it's just amazing. They just keep sort of not refining is not the right word because it's so hardcore, but they seem to kind of keep improving it with every single generation. GT2 RS is still just completely crazy. I mean, as an idea, it started back in the day when the first 911 Turbo went four-wheel drive. It meant they could basically up the power levels and torque levels on the engine a lot. And the first GT2 came around by them taking the engine out of the four-wheel drive Porsche, the turbo, right, and sticking it in a rear-wheel drive, very, very hardcore sort of chassis. So it was had a slightly sort of scary reputation, I think, when it first came out. But good to have it in the game. And then finally, the 935, nicknamed Moby Dick. For two reasons, probably quite obvious. One, it's white. And the second reason is not great in the kind of photo that we've got, but it's just got this unbelievably long, weird tail on it that sticks out for miles past the back of the car.
Yeah.
And just an incredible. I think probably everyone would agree that it's just iconic looking car, very very successful in its racing days. And again, just good to have it in the game. Another one that's running on slicks, so you're going to have to pick and choose where you use it, what challenges you use it for. But I think in the right places, that's going to be a pretty stylish way to beat somebody in the events.
As I absolutely love this car.
Yeah, so that's going to be a prize car as well, right? So
yes, that will be. Yeah,
it's just a white whale hunt.
Well, I mean, if we do have exactly 935 cars in the game, and this is a 935, right?
Yeah.
We should we need to do that, don't we?
Like
celebrate it. The numbers meet perfectly.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We should do that.
So so I think hopefully a pretty good update, some cool new cars for people to add to their collections, and potentially win in some of the big events coming up.
Yeah, that's right.
So another thing that happens with PL6, as we add a bunch of new cars, that there just needs to be a little bit of tweaking, and everything gets slightly moved around with the balance. So we've moved a few cars around with some changes to rarities. So emotions are running high, but Tim, let's talk about why we should be glad that we're okay. So, we're all fine.
Exactly. So we've covered some of this in in-game discussions, but it's good to just go through it here. And I've also got some data visualization so you can see how it works that we can put up. So first, here's the distribution of cars by RQ, color-coded for their rarities, as it was at PL5. And then below that is what the new distribution looks like now that we've added these Porsches and Mazda and moved things around. And so you can see a few changes in that, but if we then switch over to this next chart, you can see how that new distribution is made up out of cars that got added, which is the little orange ones on top, that's all the Mazdas and new Porsches, and then cars that either moved up a rarity tier in the black, and cars that moved down a rarity tier, just a few of them in the white. So that's obviously going to change a lot of people's hands and the collections that they have. And people want to know why we did it and what the implications are. I mean, PL6 is just out now, so if you had a bunch of those cars and you saw this coming, we did announce it in advance, you could have saved up a whole bunch of, especially rares, they're easy to get. Now you've got a bunch of super rares kind of for free that you can use to upgrade your ultra rares pretty easily. So that's one of the nicest side effects. But probably a lot of people are feeling like, oh no, but I saved up like the best uncommons and the best rares, and now a bunch of those have become like the worst in the rarity above. So we should talk a little bit about why we do this and what it really means for your garage, right? So, I mean, the RQ system is really important to top drives. It's kind of how we make the whole thing work. It's how it's not just like, oh, better car's just better. It allows the whole specialist strategy to emerge.
Yes, and I mean it's just such a big, obviously kind of one of the reasons we sort of built the game and wanted to go wide on the cars was that there's just people. I mean, people love. I mean, I'm very into cars, but I just like this real spread of cars. It's not all about the absolute fastest, and I think the RQ system is just an incredibly important part of making different cars valuable within the game.
Yeah, exactly. And what players recognised that as well when we came out, one of the most commonly requested event types was to have an RQ limit and say, construct a hand that has a total RQ of no more than 75 or whatever. Players really wanted to be able to do that. So we got that in the December update, I think, and then we've been running events around that ever since. And that's, really enabled people to make the most of their collection and really appreciate the RQ3 Honda Beat as like something that do a real good specialist job and leave lots of RQ free for other cars. But this is really the way that we make that work. So we put in all the cars and figure out their performance and rank them in order based on their average performance in like almost all the tracks against all the other cars. And then we try to break them up evenly through the RQ bands. So I mean, that means that each rarity tier has a kind of equal amount of diversity within it, which is quite important. You don't want to have a rarity tier that has half as many cars as the other, because then it's sort of half as interesting. So we want to spread them out. And it's also good to have each actual specific RQ have a similar number of cars as well, so that they maintain their diversity in the same kind of way, especially when you're looking at an RQ limited event. And then you go, I really need an off-roader that's RQ 11 to make this work. And it's kind of better if everything's distributed well for people to be able to play that strategy. So that's an important reason for it to be flat. If you look at the distribution, you'll see that there are fewer legendaries. We did do that deliberately. We sort of skewed it down a bit. We actually put better cars into lower rarities than they would be if they were just flat, because we knew legendaries are so hard to get hold of. If there were loads there, people would have hardly any of them ever. It would be even harder to chase for a specific one. And so we thought, all right, that's kind of wasted diversity. We'll have more epics and more ultra rares, and so on down. Also, this time around, we're applying that same thinking a little bit to common cars. They don't come up as often. They're already quite diverse. We're adding a few. We figured it was okay if that had slightly fewer. So that's why in this new distribution, you can see there's slightly fewer common cars. One other thing to note as well, you can look at that new distribution and go, well, there's a lot of cars in some RQs and not others. There's some strange bumps in there, but the reason for that is we know doing a big RQ change is quite disruptive to the game and everybody's collections. So we try to do it as rarely as we think is reasonable. And to do that, we factor in future cars that are going to come into future updates when we do the rebalance. So when future updates come out, you're probably going to see some of those gaps in RQ start to fill in. You could try and infer what kind of cars are going to come in from that, I suppose. It'd be very difficult to do. But that, just to give you an idea of why that distribution comes out. So that's the main reason for that. Also, I mean, we spoke about it a little bit with the Audis. We make that slightly more bespoke distinction between epic and legendary. And when we do a rebalance, we're much more hesitant to move things between the epic and legendary tier, because we know players have invested a huge amount of one kind of car or another, and moving that is a really big deal. So we generally hold those back from moving too much and make a call on which side the new cars should come in on. I mean, the Mazda 3 concept car is coming in as really a top-end epic. That is going to be one of the best epics that you can get. And we had to look at that really carefully. And like, wait, should this just technically be a legendary or is it kind of an epic? But it's similar to the Camaro in terms of how good it is. It's better in some ways and worse in others, but it seems about right. So that's why we're doing it. In terms of what it does to your garage, I think before December we couldn't do RQ limited events, so we would do an event just for super rares and just for ultra rares or whatever. And in that paradigm, that having the very best super rares and the very best ultra rares and everything was the best strategy. You would have the best cars in those events. But now, every time you run one of those events, I think pretty much we have an RQ limit. And that actually means all the cars in that rarity are viable. And now the most important thing is knowing which ones are the right cars for the track set and which ones are efficient for their RQ. And so that's why having your favourite best uncommons go up to rares, or rares go up to super rares, that sure, they've come out of that pool, but now they're really useful to you in that next rarity tier up. And you've been able to upgrade them for cheaper than they would be to upgrade now, because they've gone up a level. So I think generally people are not actually worse off in their collections, but in terms of RQ limited events, you've still got really useful cars. And in fact, it's very often pretty handy. I don't know how other people do it, but in an RQ limited event, I'll often put in the best ones from the RQ and then put in like the worst one somewhere to make sure I hit the RQ limit. It's I only have to win 3 races probably, so this one's fine. But having a fully upgraded one is good. So I think it works. I mean, people have got the update now as well. You can see what your collection looks like, see what those events are looking like.
See what the changes are, and it's like you say, it's something we do take seriously still, and do try and minimise. but it obviously kind of is needed to keep the overall game and the overall balancing in a healthy state.
Yeah, that's right. So. And which way things moved completely depends on which cars we added, right? So when we added Porsche for the first time in December, that added a huge number of cars at the top end of the range. We actually rebalanced all of our queue to go up to a maximum of 30 instead of 25, which sort of disguised some of the changes, but that actually meant the quality effectively of ceramics and ultra rares carbon fibers went up globally because so many more cars that were really good came in at the top end. And since then we've gone down a bit from there and up a bit from there, and it's always moving around, but still, because of that, it was so huge that carbon fibers are better now than they were at launch, even with this recent change as well. So yeah, that's how that works.
Well, everybody loves an unboxing video, and down here at Hutch with Top Drives we've got packs, so Tim is going to open some slightly obscure packs for us, I think.
What I thought would be, I record most of my pack openings, in case something really exciting happens, and I thought it would be fun to share just like some of my most exciting pack openings that I've had. So the first thing I did, I recorded, I think this was the first time I got a legendary car. It was in December, I think, when we just introduced challenge mode.
The game looks old there.
You can see already it looks weird, right? And so I thought I'll just record the moment I go through and open the ceramic pack. So let's see. Let's just skip to this pack opening. Right, it's a ceramic. It's going to give you a super rare or better. All right, that's how it's going to work. So you're going through, and the best cars come at the end. And the fourth one's sometimes good. Oh, it's a Navara. Oh, and then there's a legendary at the end. So I was very excited about that. Now, this car though is a bit infamous for being one of the worst legendaries that you could have. It's only RQ27.
You could definitely debate whether or not it's got that legendary kind of status as well, but it's unbelievably fast car, and again, no obvious weaknesses.
Yeah. So this then actually went on to serve me really well in the Porsche event we had with a lot of off-road. You remember that? So it was really handy to actually have a four-wheel drive Porsche. Yeah. There's not that many of them. There's an event going on just now as well, the Saloon car event, which is suddenly this car's got a moment to shine. I haven't used it that much outside of those events, but I was just happy to have a legendary. And then the other big pack opening, which I definitely wanted to record, is the day 100 carbon fiber, right? So we added a bit over 100 days ago the daily login reward, and we figured day 100 is a pretty exciting day, so let's give everybody a carbon fiber. So I had to record that, and I was silly really. I didn't even stop on card 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Oh wait, it was an epic. What? And then there's an Audi RS7 Sportback. How about that? So
that was there's some good cars in there.
Yeah, that's some seriously good cars. I mean, you feel lucky when you get an A out of carbon fiber. That's a 1 in 5 chance. When you get 2 A's, like that's amazing. That's the best carbon fiber I've ever opened. I think that first one is probably going to use it to feed a legendary. I know that it's going to be good in the rain, right? Because you've got your 4-wheel drive and your standard tyres, right?
So that's
all right. But I do already have the CT6,
right, which is legendary wet weather ability.
and that's RQ26 as well. It's a bit better. And I don't know if I need 2, but the Audi, I'm definitely going to keep that for that all-rounder power. So yeah,
you should probably keep the Rover as well, just because it's an amazing looking car.
I think I already have that one, that rare Rover. Yeah. There you go. That's it.
Wonderful. Right, so that is all that we're going to cover this week. But of course, this hopefully is not the only week that we're going to be doing a Top Drive show. This series is going to run primarily on your questions and your feedback. So go down into the comments. If you have a question that you want answered for the next episode, then go ahead and write it down. If you see a question someone's already asked that you really want to hear the answer to, make sure to give that comment a thumbs up. We're going to be looking at those ones first. So seriously, guys, if you want to hear what we've got to say on all of your thoughts and opinions, do that. If you've got some feedback on how we can make the series more interesting, then also leave those. We want to make this as good as possible for all of you. So that's it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And a massive thank you for watching episode 1, and for John and Tim joining up today. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And welcome to the 2017 Mini Run. Track future, and here he comes now. Final round to the British Drift Championship. Madeira Drive in Brighton, and as you can see, minis.
Yeah, it's amazing just to see modern cars go around the motor circuit. You kind of have to think to see if you're seeing things right.
Necessarily a good thing, especially alongside a 560 kilogram catering 365.
Hi for you.
Well, let's put it this way.